Hey, it's Liz from Blue and Hazel. Welcome to my homeschool YouTube channel. In today's video, I want to take you through the Year 2 Ambleside Online books. So it'll look something like this. I am missing one book from this stack that I know of, Understood Betsy, and I'm planning to get that one, but just wanted to let you know those are the books I'll be covering in this video. If you're interested in other book stacks from Ambleside Online to see what's going to be read in other years, my hope is to make one of those for each year that we have done or will be doing Ambleside Online. So check the video description for that. I should have years 1 through 5 as up through this year for you to watch. If you're new to this channel, welcome. I'm Liz and I'm a homeschooling mom of 4. We have been homeschooling since the beginning, but this is our very first year doing Ambleside Online and doing more of a Charlotte Mason approach to our homeschool. So we're definitely not following it to a T, but we are implementing a lot of new things all at once. And so I'm just kind of trying to share what we're learning as we're going. And if that interests you, I'd love to have you subscribe. Also hit the bell and you can be notified whenever I upload new videos. All right, so first thing I would recommend doing is printing off Ambleside Online's 36-week schedule that you can get on their website for year 2. And the way that we did that this year with each of my kids, so for year 1, 3, and 4 this year, we would just pick like 2 to 3 readings per day for my year 1. So I'm not sure how that will come out for year 2, but I think that on average my year 3 had about 3 readings per day. So I'm guessing that it's going to be somewhere between 2 to 3 readings for year 2 per day. And so I would just pick one of these and color it off as we went through it. And then as soon as all of week 1 readings were colored in, we would move on to week 2. So sometimes if they were longer readings or if we were busy and skipped some days, then it would take us a few extra days to cover 1 full week. But the way that I kind of paced myself and kept track of what we'd read was I would color it in as we went. Also be sure to check the footnotes on the Ambleside Online year 2 if you're going into this. Every single year's curriculum that they have a bunch of footnotes at the very bottom of the page when you go in their menu and click year 2. Sometimes if there's something in a chapter of a book that you might want to be aware of before you read it, it'll have a note on there. I find it really helpful. So the first thing that you're going to notice on the schedule is Bible. They'll have an Old Testament and New Testament one. You are welcome to have your year 2 do that with you. If they're reading independently, they can read that on their own, or some families, which I would fall into, like to do more of a family Bible time. And so we just pick one thing to read all together with all the kids. All right, so one of the first books that you're going to see for history is A Child's History of the World. Also, I call this Chow, is how they write it down on the schedule, if you see that. And so this is one of those history books that's going to span year 2 and year 3 in Ambleside Online. And they have fairly short chapters, and the kids will not read the first 40-some chapters of this book using Ambleside Online. So just be aware, it's thick, it's big, but they have decided not to use those earlier chapters, and this is not presented in first grade. The next book that is going to be part of year 2 is This Country of Ours. This particular one is going to span several years as well. So my 3rd grade daughter read a majority of this book this year, but it begins in year 2. So it looks like for This Country of Ours, the first term, there's only going to be 1 reading from this, Vikings. And then as we go to the second term, I don't see any from this particular book. And then term 3, it looks like there will be This Country of Ours at the end of term 3. There will be chapters 2 through 5 read along. So the majority of this is going to carry over for year 3, but it begins in year 2. The next book that you're going to see in history is Our Island Story. This was a year 1 book as well and is continuing into year 2. So they'll read about 1 chapter per week is the pace of it. And starting here, just to show you what a reading would look like, it'd be page 1, page 2, and page 3, and a little extra. Then we have a new chapter, 1, 2, 3.5 pages. So that just gives you kind of a pacing sample. And one thing I think is really helpful, especially when you're looking at 3.5 pages with a history reading and a younger child, is just splitting that reading in half if you need, or as many readings as you need to keep their attention and let them be able to narrate well. So kind of gauge your child. I would probably cut this in at least 2 readings for my son. Next up is Trial and Triumph. This is a special book because it covers kind of a short condensed version of a lot of different Christian biographies. And so you are seeing and reading about people in your time period each year that that really influenced the faith and that lost a lot, if not their life, for the sake of the gospel. And so I'm a big fan of this book. There were a few pretty gruesome stories my year one I did not feel was ready for this year. And so this is the book that if you don't pre-read any other book, I would recommend pre-reading Trial and Triumph just to decide if the story seems fit for your where your kid is at, especially if they're sensitive. But some of the stories are not hard to read at all, but are still very inspiring. So one thing that we've done this year is read this as a family subject. It doesn't make each of the people that we're reading about necessarily line up with each kid's time period when we do that, but it is a way that we can kind of have one extra thing be family style. All right, next up we have Little Duke, and I've never read this before, but this will be a read aloud. I will be reading to my second grader, and I feel like people have said that this is a pretty challenging book, but one that is worth pushing through. I've also heard a lot of people say how much they enjoyed it, even though it was definitely a harder read. So if you've read Little Duke with other years, please let me know in the comments. I'm curious to know your opinion on it. I'm really excited to read this with my son. Next, we have the Burgess Animal Book for Natural History. This year we have loved the Burgess Bird Book, so I'm hoping that this will be just an extension of that. And inside, what you'll see here are a bunch of standalone stories of different animals, and we'll just get to learn about them in a very story form type of way. There are some pictures in here, and then be sure to check the Ambleside Online Facebook group for files around the Burgess Animal Book, because a lot of people have volunteered to put up like coloring pages and fun things for this particular book. So next up we have Tree in the Trail. This is a Holling Clancy Holling book. Every single one of these books are just awesome. So the pictures are great. I'll give you a little look inside, and you can expect one chapter per week of these readings here. The second book following that one by the same author is Seabird, and similar, you're going to be reading one chapter per week throughout the year. So the next thing that we have listed on here is Tales from Shakespeare. We have the Charles and Mary Lamb version, and I used that for my year 1, 3, and 4 this year, and it was great. So I'm just gonna plan to do that again, family style with all the kids. Year 2 does have listed 2 different plays per term, so that would be 6 in a year. And each one I found we liked to split into 2 to 3 readings per one, so it was easier to read in shorter chunks. And I found this particular one very easy to follow the storyline. My kids were able to narrate back what was happening. So my year 1 was not really interested in listening in this year. So I actually just read it with my year 3 and 4 this current year, but I do hope that he is ready to listen in and be interested on the Shakespeare plays for year 2. I just really didn't care if he wanted to listen in for year 1. So this might be his very first experience listening to some of these plays. Okay, so the next one up is Parables from Nature, and this is a book that I personally love. My year 1 did not like listening to these last year. It was just, for him, I think it was a little bit over his head, and he just didn't seem like he was enjoying listening, whereas my year 4 and my year 3, they were really in tune to what it was saying and kind of catching along with maybe some of the parables part of things. And so yeah, hopefully my year 2 is wanting to listen. I did not make him this year as a year 1. As a year 2, I think his attention span is going to be so much better. They have Parables of Nature scheduled 3 for term 1. They have 3 for term 2, and they have 4 for term 3 scheduled. So that's kind of the pacing. Every few weeks you have a new one, so it will not be read every week. And then one other book that's scheduled is Pilgrims Progress, and I believe Ambleside Online actually has the real Pilgrims Progress scheduled for year 2. We opted as a family not to read the longer version, and we went this year as a family style, read Little Pilgrims Progress, which was awesome. You can see my other videos, I have that listed, but since we've already read Little Pilgrims Progress, I wanted to get the next version. This is one my husband read when he was little, apparently, and it has awesome pictures inside and just written a little differently, but the same storyline. And so we will go ahead and read this as a family together this year. and I'm looking forward to just kind of seeing how this is different than Little Pilgrims Progress. And then so a few other books for the literature part of Ambleside Online Year 2. Understood Betsy is apparently a highlight for so many people. I've heard just amazing things about how that was one of the best books of the whole year, so I can't wait to read that. I don't have it yet, it's coming in the mail. But I have also heard there's a great audiobook for that one. So if you are needing to take something off your plate and you're needing some audiobooks, don't be ashamed to use what works for your family to make this more doable for you. So Understood Betsy, I believe, is term 1. And for term 2, we have Wind in the Willows. And I went ahead and got this beautiful version of The Wind in the Willows. One thing just that I wanted to keep in mind personally is to have the unabridged version, because there are so many different versions of Wind in the Willows. So if it doesn't say abridged, then it's probably unabridged, but this particular version is definitely unabridged, and it is illustrated by Robert Ingpen. You can just see some of his beautiful illustrations. I just wanted to have the book that I knew that we would love to look at the pictures for. So we are actually going to read this as a family. I want my big kids to be listening in for this one because I've heard it's just such a classic and we've never read it. So next up we have for term 3, Robin Hood. And this is a fatty book that took us a long time to read. I actually already read this to our family this year in our family read aloud time, and we loved it. I will not have my year 2 read this again. I'm gonna sub it out for something else. And there are plenty of other good books that we could fill in for this term 3, so that's not going to be an issue at all. But if you haven't read Robin Hood, this one is super good. This version was great. The Old English took us a couple of weeks to really get used to listening to, but after that it was fun, and even my first grader was able to kind of listen along and enjoy this. Poetry, we are planning to continue reading as a family together a couple of these poems a day. Now, Ambleside Online has done an awesome job at making these poetry anthologies for each year. And they just have taken all of the hard work of you finding the poems and put them all into this amazing, one quick little book. So the reason why I have volume 3 here and not volume 2 is because I already bought this last year. I actually bought volumes 1, 3, and 4 for my year 1, 3, and 4. And then we only made it through the first volume as a family together. So we will, during family time each morning, just read a couple of poems from this one. It feels a little thinner than the one from last year from year 1. So we'll probably make it quicker through this one, and then I will use the year 4 that I already own before going back and buying the year 2. So, but no, there is a year 2 available if you just have a second grader and want the poetry for year 2. Okay, one more book that is a term 3 book and a history read, Jonah BARC. It's a picture book, and just to kind of give you an inside look at the pictures and the reading level, this is what you're looking at. They don't actually schedule that one apart, so you can read that at your own pace till it's finished. All right, that is our year 2 book stack, and those are just the scheduled reads. That does not cover any of the free reads, and free read time I have found to be really tricky to add into our already full day, especially when I have a very active little guy who is still wanting to just go play and is not fully reading like long books on his own, especially not the ones that Ambleside Online recommends for his free read year. So my thought in his life next year is we will probably try to utilize some audiobooks using our Yodo Mini, and I will try to put some free reads on there for him to just listen to. We might go down a level and try to pick up some of the free reads from year 1 that we just didn't get to this year. They were, over his reading ability on his own, and I didn't have time to necessarily read some of those to him. And so I'd like to try to revisit some of those year 1 books that are a little bit easier for him. If you found this video helpful, thanks for giving me a thumbs up, and be sure to check out my Ambleside videos in the description. I will leave a link for you there. Thanks for watching.